Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Music Lab podcast. My name is Dogg, and I'm so excited to be back with all of you for another episode of the podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us and helps out the artists, bands, and people who like artists and bands, like Miss Selena over here. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear, RAR. So, ladies and gentlemen, today I have Miss Selena Fragassi on today. How are you today from Chicago?
I'm good. I'm cold. It's like we're getting to the sub-zero temperatures now, so I'm not quite ready for it yet, but
Yeah, you
Chicago.
had a decent amount of snow, right? Too, right?
We did, yeah, like the weekend after Thanksgiving, we got like about a foot of snow. It's been crazy here in Chicago so far this winter. It's not even winter yet. It's still fall. So,
It's tough to
yeah.
go out and see a concert when you're trudging through snow, right?
I know, and I have to go to one tonight and I'm kind of dreading it. It's all the way. It's kind of far, so yeah, it is what it
Yeah.
is. But I love my job, so I can't complain.
So, music journalist, you work for Chicago Sun-Times, you work for Fox 32, you've written for Spin Magazine, written for Paste, Loudwire, the AV Club. I actually got to interview Josh from Paste a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Just fantastic guy.
Yeah.
I've gotten to meet him over the years going to South by and this year going to Americana Fest down in Nashville. And just a great guy. So that was a fantastic. So I'm sure that your experience at Pace Navy Club was amazing, correct?
Oh yeah, it's been a few years since I wrote for them, but I loved what I did there. And yeah, every place I've written for has just been such a joy, and I just appreciate it all.
So how do you like for each kind of like platform or for lack of a better word or
Yeah.
outlet, I guess, how do you feel like you impact or not impact? Like how do you feel like you bring out your personality best in each like format and like kind of outlet?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've done print, online, I've done video, I've been on TV. I just try to be myself every time. And so whether that's, writing something or whether that's vocally talking about an artist. And it's fun because on TV, I have such a great crew of people that are also music fans, especially Anthony on Fox 32. And so we just have so much fun. Like that's the baseline of it, right? Is like if you don't have fun, don't be doing this job because I think, sometimes maybe we can take ourselves too seriously. I think I did in the beginning probably, but at the heart of it all, I'm a music fan. And so this is like the best job in the world.
Well, I love how you do the monthly kind of, for what people like what's going on for the month. Like, I think that's a
Yeah.
great idea because, people, especially, just average people who are not like have a pulse of the music scene,
Yeah.
they're not going to know who's coming to town. So, like, it's a great, like, way to do that. Like, talk about the innovation of that, when you started doing it.
Yeah, it was actually Fox who approached me about it. They have a great producer over there, and I had been on their show to talk about Lollapalooza and other kind of bigger, kind of global things. But nobody does this. And it's like we in Chicago, we're in such a great city for live music. We have so many live music clubs. We're in the center of the country, so most tours come through here. And she's like, let's just do a monthly segment where we talk about your picks for the shows to see every month. I'm like, that's brilliant. So, and you're right, because I think, a lot of people maybe it's overwhelming. You see all the concert listings, the advertisements, there's so many venues to keep on the pulse of and check in their newsletters. But I think having someone to help curate it and tell you about an artist that maybe you don't know about, because I try to do a good mix. I always want to have like obviously the standouts, but different genres, up and comers, so that anybody who's watching can kind of be like, oh, maybe I want to go check that out.
Selena, you're talking my language here.
Yeah.
So we do a couple different series. So we do this thing called The Road to South by, where we feature five bands each week that are playing at South by because as you are well know, like South by there's like 2,000 bands, so it's just impossible to try and like get through all of that. So, that's kind of like same mantra, right?
Yeah.
Road to Americana Fest. We did a series about that, featuring bands for that. We do this thing called also the bottom line on the bottom lines.
Okay.
When you look at a music festival poster,
Oh, I like
all of the
that.
bands that, are in small print, well, we want to highlight them. So that's kind of cool. So,
It's so important because I feel like, I tell people this all the time. And my biggest tips about going to festivals is please go early. Don't just go for the headliners because it's not, you're missing out on a whole day of entertainment and a way to catch on to bands that you maybe never heard of. And like they're giving their all because they know what a big stage that is. So please go early and always go for openers at concerts because they're going to be the headliners of tomorrow. So,
Yeah. Especially too when you can tell your friends like, "Hey, I saw the Strokes with 50 people at Lollapalooza, like on the side stage." Like,
yep.
it's a great story. So let's talk about an up and coming band that you and I are both familiar with, Case Oates. When
Mm.
did you start getting into Case Oates?
They came onto my radar a little bit later. It was around their debut album this past summer, Last Missouri Exit. And I always love giving the love to Chicago bands, so that already had my attention. And I didn't even know that Spencer Tweedy was in that band because obviously there's a big name behind it. I had no clue he was even in it. And when I listened to this album, the artist who's really behind this, Casey Gomez Walker, I was so attuned to her narrative style because I'm a storyteller myself. My degree, actually, we went to the same college years apart, but my degree is in fiction writing. And so I love a really good story, and I love when artists are able to put that into music. I think it's just an unparalleled, talented gift. And that music, it's one of my favorites of this year. In fact, I'm writing it up as one of my favorites for the year. Yeah, it's just a beautiful act.
It really, it totally blew me away, and I was totally caught off guard because, like, again, they were part of the Americana Fest, so like, I think I got to listen to just one song that was part of like the mix, and I just was instantly turned on. So then I like, researched and just, yeah, like that album is just fantastic. And she's so
So,
kind of like, there's just a little quirkiness to her too that is just
yeah.
really like appealing. Is that fair to say?
Oh, totally. Actually, because I interviewed her for the Sun Times, and I love doing in-persons with Chicago artists because there's nothing like an in-person interview. It's just so much more candid than, doing and I get it, phoners have to happen for a lot of logistical reasons, but she's got like a quirk for sure, but like humble and so sweet and kind and also very intelligent. Just like that mix of
Yeah.
factors, and it makes her an incredibly interesting human being.
Yeah. So let's talk about another interesting human being.
Yeah.
Why we have you on this Pearl Jam Alive book. Yeah, I love, first of all, let's just talk about how the setup of the book is, because I think that's super important. And then we can kind of dive into the details. So tell the
Sure.
audience, like, first of all, the inspiration behind the book, why you love Pearl Jam so much, and then like the setup of the book.
Yeah, so the publisher I work with, I pitch them routinely, and they love like anniversary milestone driven books. And I noticed that, shoot, in 2025, like Pearl Jam is literally turning 35, which one is crazy. Um, and I started just thinking about how would my book be different? Because there's been a lot written about Pearl Jam. Cameron Crowe and the other writers did a great Pearl Jam 20 book that went through the history. So for me, Pearl Jam has always been masters of the live performance, and that to me is their legacy. I think they have built a community around that. I think that's what they've given us for 35 years. And so I really wanted to play into this idea of Pearl Jam's live career and live history. And so there is a lot of that in the book, but to really even hone that in further, I made it almost like a concert itself. So the book is built into three sections: the opening act before they kind of got the grease under them and the Seattle scene and all the foundation. The headliner, which was really their 90s up to kind of Roskilde era when they were really just at the top of their game and changing the industry, really. And then their encore, which has been post Roskilde. And I did it that way because, for the band, they've admitted that they almost broke up at that point. And so I think they came into this new era post millennium. And then each chapter is named for a song. And so there's 24, 25 chapters. So it acts kind of like a set list. So I wanted to really, again, have that whole organization and archetype as part of this book.
Yeah. I guess you also could have done like the Boom chapter, right?
Oh my gosh, I know. He doesn't get enough love, and that could have been its own chapter for sure. For sure. He is talked about in the book, though, I will say.
Right,
So yeah.
of course, of course, of course. So yeah, so I mean, I'll give you just a little background on my Pearl Jam. So I started listening to them when I was 14. I'm 48 now. I just saw them for the 14th time last year in Philly, night two. But what you'll appreciate, I actually the two nights at the United Center in 23. The night that Chris Chelios was like that they gave him the jersey.
Yeah.
So I that was a complete like 10-day before the show, like let's do this, like one of those things. I was
Nice.
literally in the city for 28 hours. Got to go to a Cubs game, got to go to the Pearl Jam show, got my deep dish pizza. Like it was amazing. And like I must say, I've been to a bunch of arenas like for concerts. I was really surprised at how well the acoustics are at the
Mhm.
United Center. Speak on that because I'm sure you've seen plenty of shows there.
Yeah, I think it's gotten better. I definitely have been at shows at United Center that have not, but I think it's not just the venue, it's the sound people, and they know how to work with the limitations of the venue. And Pearl Jam has like one of the best teams, a woman sound designer as well, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it's a great venue, and there is a lot of history in that venue. And of course, Eddie being a huge Chicago sports fan because he did grow up here for part of his life. It's always special when he gets to play these hallowed halls, and Wrigley Field, of course, being another one. But I was there those 2 nights, and the specialness of having Chris Chelios and announcing the jersey. I mean, what a cool like Venn diagram of music and sports fandom. And I think if you're a Pearl Jam fan, you kind of probably have both. I mean, they started as basketball fans with Mookie Blaylock, so there's that combination there.
Yeah. So tell the audience, I guess, that's not familiar with like Eddie's connection to Chicago and to Illinois in particular.
Yeah, so Eddie grew up, part of his childhood was here in Evanston, which is a suburb of Chicago. It's where Northwestern University is at. And I think, it's funny because he's lived in a few places, of course, San Diego being another, and then obviously Seattle. But I think he really holds Chicago near and dear to his heart. Probably because when you're a kid, most of those, that's like really your foundation. And so he's just a big fan of the Cubs. He wore that Walter Payton jersey all last tour for the Bears, obviously the Hawks. If he's not on tour, he's usually in Chicago for some kind of sporting event, and often would be at Stanley's, which was this bar doing karaoke with some of the sports players after these games. So he's just been like a fun character to see about town when he's just so like down to earth. He's like a regular guy, and I know people who know him. My brother has worked with him a few times because he worked at Wrigley, and nobody has ever had anything bad to say about this man. So
Yeah. Well, and
yeah,
also too, like you always hear about great bands and the teams that surround them that are even better. Like Fish's, like team, like Metallica's team, like bands like that, like
yeah,
talk about like how, Kelly Curtis and like the 10 Club and all of that, like in
yeah.
their team, how they really kind of propelled Pearl Jam as well.
Yeah, I mean, Kelly Curtis, talk about a manager. Like he just was really going to bat for this band all throughout this time. I think there's like this greater sense of team and community within the Seattle Foundation, the Seattle scene as well. I think it's just a really special network that I really wanted to explore for this book too, because I don't know that we'd have had this, quote unquote grunge or alt rock explosion without having the Seattle infrastructure and how they were really such a community. But, Pearl Jam has had like the same managers and the same publicists and the same record label like forever. And so I think there's just this real commitment to the band, and it's not fleeting, and there is not a rotating door, even with band members. I mean, the only one really is the drummer, but Matt Cameron, up until he left, was there for over 20 years. So I think people are just in it for the long haul.
So obviously, I mean, that's a good segue.
Yeah.
We as fans were shocked by Matt's, announcement.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, though, it sounded like at the Pittsburgh show, there was some definite like I guess like alarms or maybe like red flags that this might have been his last show. I have watched the YouTube video. I didn't really pick up on anything from your like research. What can you provide for, perspective about him leaving?
I had no clue. And honestly, the announcement came way after I had written my book, and it was off to the publisher. So we couldn't even amend it at that point. But I like it actually because I like that it celebrates Matt Cameron, doesn't talk about him leaving, because he was such a huge part of Pearl Jam and pivotal. But I've been trying to wrap my head around it as well because it came as a shock to me. I thought that he'd be a lifer there as well. So I certainly didn't see any inference of any wrapping it up or leaving. And I'm very curious what he's going to do next. And of course, who Pearl Jam is going to get to fill the seat.
Well, it sounds like he's doing like what is releasing some solo like work.
Yeah, he's done it all along though, but I'm like, is there
Okay.
something bigger? Like, is Soundgarden going to do something? maybe. I mean, maybe the Rock Hall kind of inspired these talks again.
Right.
Um,
Well,
so I
and
don't know.
obviously Chris's daughter has,
Yeah.
made some public appearances, so that would, I mean, make sense, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they've worked with Brandy Carlisle, they worked with Taylor Momsen. I mean, there's certainly people they could tap into. I think it would be very, very hard to try to get someone to fill the seat of Chris Cornell. But Linkin Park certainly did it. So, I don't know. TBD, I guess. I'm
Yeah.
excited. Like I love Soundgarden so very much. Chris Cornell is one of my all-time favorite singers, but I would love to see them back in action for sure.
I'm pretty sure he is the only artist that I've ever seen three incarnations of live. Um,
Okay. I
Audio
probably have two.
Slave,
Me too. Yeah,
Soundgarden, and him solo.
same.
Yeah, isn't that
Same.
crazy?
I was at the Audio Slave reunion, the anti-inaugural ball in 2017 in LA, and that was incredible. And I've seen Chris solo. My favorite was there's an amazing radio station here in Chicago, XRT, and they do these very intimate listening room live broadcasts with artists, and they come through town, and they you can win tickets. And thankfully, I had a friend who worked there and knew how obsessed I was with Chris Cornell. And so when he came through for a solo gig, it was like me and 30 people in this room hearing him play a few songs acoustic, and I about died. Yeah, that was a great day.
Was it just, did he do any covers or was it just his stuff?
No, it was his stuff. It was no cover. It was just like it's two songs, and
Oh, okay.
God, I can't remember.
Yeah,
I
what did
was
he
so
do?
I literally I need to look it up because I don't remember because I probably was just so shocked and in the moment.
Yeah.
I don't
Sun
remember.
sh I mean, what is it? Sun Shower, Can't Change Me. Like even his solo stuff, like it's just
Yeah,
so
yeah,
good.
I
Yeah.
know. He's an incredible. I miss him for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, yeah, he had a lot of demons, I think, as a lot of these artists do. So I do want to talk about, again, a band that you and I, and we'll get back to Pearl Jam because this will be
Sure.
kind of throughout the whole conversation, but I love these like sidebars. You talk about Linkin Park.
Yeah.
You saw them, you reviewed the show. What did you think of this reincarnation of the band?
So I went in with like low ball expectations because I wasn't sure what to expect. I've obviously known Linkin Park. I also knew Emily's band, Dead Sarah. I followed them. I hadn't really listened to a lot of their recordings, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. And it blew me away. I think, Emily Armstrong has a really good voice for filling in that role. Like the thing is when these artists die, it's horrible and it affects people on a really deep level because they feel very connected to these musicians who wrote music that saved them in times, right? And these are people who, like you said, they had issues, and I feel like listeners were able to connect with them and what they were saying in their music. So it's raw once we lose someone. But as time goes on, I feel like these bands have license to pick up the pieces and carry on. And in a way, it's like paying tribute to that person who's gone. So the flack because she got a lot of flack in the beginning and people just didn't understand. I think a lot of it was rooted in misogyny, to be honest. And that makes me upset as a woman and as someone who has devoted herself to covering women in music. But beyond any bias I had, about that. I thought it was incredible. I thought her voice really fit the music and she gave it her all. And I really loved that show. And the crowd was into it too, really into it.
What else can you ask for? I mean, from
Yeah.
really, like that's
Yeah. I mean, she like, it's a very big role to fill and she did it in a
yeah,
very short amount of time and she nailed it.
yeah. So let's get back to Pearl Jam because,
Yeah.
the basis of the book is obviously the live experience.
Yeah.
I just told you like 14 times, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of
Yeah.
everything, but like would never change it for the world. What is it about their live show that like makes you and I want to see them multiple times?
I think because Pearl Jam is very focused on the fans. It's not something to appease promoters. It's not something to appease the label. It's not something to appease radio stations. And they make it so special every single night. It's a different set list. It's highly curated. They often put, I think if you were in Chicago, you heard the story of the fan who was dying and they put a song in that was his favorite song. They're very attuned to like what fans would want. And it makes it so special because you know they care about your experience that night. And because it is different each night and you have no clue what they're going to do, they could just play 10 in full if they wanted to, and you don't want to miss it. It's like this idea of the FOMO, right? So you people go to as many shows as they possibly can. Every time they're in Chicago, I go to multiple nights because you know that they're gonna do some rare stuff at least on one of the nights. And so I think there's just that, and they bring in this community of people that when you're at a show together, it's just like this uplifting feeling. It's just this confluence of factors.
So when you were writing the book, obviously, you probably know as much about the band as I do. Was there anything that surprised you, or were there multiple things that surprised you?
Yeah, I think there were a few. I think, as I started thinking more about the history of the band and Seattle and the death of Andy Wood, I really think the death of Andy Wood was monumental in shaping the Seattle scene more than I understood it. Um, I also was really taken aback by, and again, I knew surface level of this, but just how tragedy has become such a theme in Pearl Jam's entire career. And I think that also really humanizes them. So as like I kept writing this book, it kept becoming very apparent to me how Pearl Jam really is a band for the people. They're just so down to earth. They always think of their fans. They're able to connect with people on a very visceral level, and they champion causes for humanity. And so this theme kept running through my head and was supported as I did my research. Yeah, I think those were like the biggest shocking moments to me, or and not even shocking, but just like the gravity of it as I kept researching.
Yeah. I think the one music festival that I have not been to that I am dying to go to is Ohana Festival. Have you
Mm.
been?
No, but I have a lot of friends who go, and I've heard it's incredible, and I hope to get there. I mean, like on the ocean, I just can't. It's probably incredible. Yeah.
And I'm hoping that this is not the last one because,
Oh God, I hope not. I bet not. I feel like he has such fun doing it, and it's like his friends. It's like his
yeah.
Eddie Vedder at heart is just wants to be in a jam band, and so I think like that's his chance to do it. You know?
Yeah. You talk, and that's funny. That it's a good segue. Like you talked about in another interview about how, Eddie, or how each band member has like a distinctive like style of music that they like. And that Eddie
Yeah.
was like always like, the Who, like that was like his like mantra. Talk about that like for the audience who's not familiar with that.
Yeah, each of the band members really had like they were super fans themselves. And I think so they understand how their fans feel. And so Eddie was, like you said, The Who and Neil Young. And then you had Stone, who is a big Led Zeppelin fan. You had Mike, who loved Kiss. You had Jeff, who was more punk, like Ramones. And you had Matt, who really liked jazz and like other types of music too. But with Eddie and The Who, I mean, when you think about 10, that came from a demo tape that Eddie got his hands on and quote unquote auditioned to be in Pearl Jam. And he wrote his own opera, not unlike The Who's Tommy, to show his, that's how much his fandom it was there. It was so embedded in his musical DNA. And that knowing the basis of those songs and how he orchestrated that, and again, like within days, I mean, it's just the genius of Eddie Vedder.
Yeah. What's cool now is that they are, at the age they are, that, their fans are now bringing their kids and even grandkids, I guess, in certain, respects. So, talk about like just the longevity of the band and how that's been able to happen.
Yeah, I mean, 35 years. So you're right. That would at least be like two generations,
Yeah.
if not more. But I think because people just had such strong reactions to seeing Pearl Jam live, they wanted to share that experience. And so it used to be friends, but when you get married and start having families, you want to like kind of pass that on. Lately, I've been obsessed with the idea of music being passed on. It's something that's really sitting in my head. And I think Pearl Jam is a great case for that because people do pass it on, whether it's I said, brought their friends or now they're bringing their family members. But, and I love it because younger generations need to know about this music. It can't die out. And thankfully, Pearl Jam is still active, so there is still a way to see them.
Yeah. As my oldest daughter was growing up, before any of the other kids were born, I would always like play music and I would say like, all right, Adeline, like who's singing this, right? And the two consistent bands that she would get right, you're gonna laugh, are Wilco
Mm,
and Pearl Jam. Like
I
it
love
was
it.
so funny. Like that was the two bands that she would always like, not even Radiohead.
Very recognizable, though.
Yeah,
So they
yeah,
have
yeah.
their own brand.
Yeah. So you also, I mean, you've not only written books about, or a book about Pearl Jam, but you've written many, many other books. And I want to talk about your book about Alanis Morissette because Alanis Morissette will always have a special place in my heart because I got to see her for the Jagged Little Pill tour in
Mhm.
1996 in Hershey Park or at Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is, about 45 minutes from where I'm at. And a little old band named Radiohead opened up for her on that tour
Yep.
and forever changed, like, and now Radiohead is like, my number one, with Pearl Jam close being second. So talk about the reason why you did this book and what her legacy has meant to like her fans.
Oh yeah. But also like what a random pairing for a bill. I know they were both huge radio bands at that point, but it's like what a weird pairing. And Johnny
Yeah,
Greenwood has talked about it too, and he was like, her fans hated us. They just wanted to see
yeah,
Alanis, you know.
yeah.
Um, but Alanis Morissette, so I have really built a career on covering women in music. It's been very, very important to me. That's where I started at a magazine called Venus. My very first story was on an unknown Adele. I got to hang out with Adele at a very tiny club here in Chicago. And so women in music has always just been something I've very much championed. And when thinking about the first woman I wanted to write about, I mean, who better than Alanis Morissette? She was groundbreaking for me personally, for so many other people, not just women, but a lot of people. And I wanted to really know why this album was so monolithic. So all these books that I do, yes, of course, like I want to do a great job for anyone who reads it, but they're just this personal curiosity for me too. I want to know the story. I want to pick apart all these things and do the research. And half the time I'm shocked by what I find out, or I get excited with, going down the rabbit hole and putting the pieces together and figuring out my own themes and hypotheses. But Alanis was just so, so groundbreaking more than any other woman in that era. And I wanted to know why. So that was my rationale for doing it.
Yeah, because I mean, really, like, you had what, Liz Phair, you had, the ten
PJ
Thousand
Harvey.
Maniacs. Yeah, like, bands like that
Sure.
that were lead front. I must say, and it's so thrilling and like just exciting for me. Like the last couple years at South by, the amount of female fronted bands, like
Mhm.
rock bands,
Yeah.
like is just so it's amazing. Like, and they're so good. Like, and it's fine. I think you're finally starting to see this like more equality. Are you seeing
Yeah.
that as well? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think there's still work to be done. I mean, women still don't headline as much as men do festivals and whatnot. There's work to be done, but I think there definitely is more women, and women are dominating music right now. I mean, just look at the pop charts and it's crazy. But you have bands like Wet Leg, and I think there's like license to just also be who you are, be bold and sassy. And so I feel like it hints back at that era too. I think we're having a renaissance of that right now, and I am here for it because I think women have a lot to talk about and to sing about and to express. We're living in a time when our autonomy is being taken away, and there's a lot of issues at hand. And so I'm really glad women are coming to the stage and just being unfiltered and being themselves.
I want to get your take on this. I'm a little surprised because of, all of the animosity and like there's just this hatred that's just been permeating through the country, obviously because of what's going on in Washington and all that stuff. But like usually when that happens in history, punk music really kind of becomes like up on the forefront. And I haven't really seen that. Obviously, Turnstile has, changed some heads this year, but like, are you surprised that pop or that punk has not really kind of become more like, I don't know.
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm a little disappointed in American bands right now because I feel like, I've seen the big festivals here in Chicago, at least Riot Fest and Lollapalooza, and Riot Fest did have a lot of people who were vocal. There are bands who are out there putting their name out. One of them I actually do a little bit of work with, Dropkick Murphys, just to plug them. But Ken Casey, I mean, he has been taking Trump to task. So
Quite. Yeah.
it's been a little soft though in terms of how we've reacted to this administration with American bans. So I am a little sad about that. However, in the UK and in Ireland, it's a totally different story. You have bands like Kneecap, you have bands like Fontaines, you have bands like
Idols.
Bob Villain, who have been very outspoken about Trump and Gaza and human rights and genocides, and they have literally lost managers and labels and endorsements because of it, but they don't care because it's important to them. I have a platform, I'm going to use it. And so there is that uprising. It's just maybe not here right now, at least in the mainstream. There are underground bands for sure who are taking up that mantle. But in the mainstream, not as much.
Yeah. You spoke about Wet Leg. Their album is right up there as well. I mean, just
Oh
like
yeah.
the first album was fantastic, but this album is really like it's a kick in the teeth, you know.
I mean, literally catch these fists. It's
Catch
so
these bits.
aggressive. Moisturizer is my other favorite albums of the year, and they're going to be in town next week. And it's probably the show I have been most excited about for months. Well, we had legends here. We had Robert Plant and Paul McCartney, and I was excited for those, but I'm excited for Wet Leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
love them.
I want to know because there are so many iconic music venues in Chicago. Like, what do you have a favorite, or do you have like a top three?
Yeah, there's so many. It's hard. Like I love them all for their own unique elements and booking and but I will say the one that's always closest to my heart is Metro. So Metro Chicago on Clark Street right across from Wrigley Field, which has been hallowed ground for basically every band of this 90s era that I hold so dear. I mean, Smashing Pumpkins cut their teeth there and um Pearl Jam even played there. It's been a really special place, and I'm so glad it's still up and running and still giving space to up and comers.
Yeah, that I mean, if you can have that mix and that balance,
Yeah.
that's usually
They
leads to
they do.
success.
And they
Yeah.
have the up and comers, but they also have like these legendary Metallica played a show there a couple of years ago. Green Day played a show there, Foo Fighters. They get these legacy bands to come back and play intimate club shows, and it's just like I just want to live there. They have the best programming.
So I think this is appropriate to ask you, and if it's not, you don't have to answer it. Or Foo Fighters, the whole thing with him, with Dave Grohl and the whatever, the misogyny and stuff. It really, like, I don't know why for me, it's really left a bad taste. And I know that happens often in music and all that stuff and in life in general. But for you, how did, as a woman and like, in our time, like, how did that news kind of affect you and your relationship with the band?
I don't think it affected my relationship with the band because the band is more than one person.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was personally shocked just because like I've been around Dave Grohl and he's lovely and I just wouldn't have imagined him having discretions like that. So personally, on a personal level, it shocked me. But I at the end of the day, this is a personal matter with his family, and I feel for his wife and daughters so much. I mean, that kind of stuff can break up a family, especially when there's another kid involved in trying to process all of that. So I kind of hate that it got out into the public because it's not our place to know and judge. We don't know all the particulars. I hate that his wife is being judged for staying with him. Like that makes me so upset because it's like, why are we judging her? So it didn't taint my perception of the band
Yeah.
in any way. I feel bad that it came out into the public, and I feel bad for his family because that's a tough thing to process.
Yeah, like the Arcade Fire situation, like that
Yeah.
was, a little like, okay, like, all right, what do we do? What's going on here? Like,
I think
there's
it's
gotta
hard
be
because again,
more
it's like
to
we
it.
feel like we know these people because we invest so much time and
Yeah.
money into going to their shows and listening to their music. And so we think we know them as people. And so we get disappointed when they do things that we think is out of character for them. And there are things where like if someone does something criminal or they do something that's so appalling, if it's something involving sexual assault or minors or something of like, yeah, I'm done with you. But something like that where it's a family issue. It's like it's something that his family should be able to process privately.
Correct. Yeah. So you got to work with Scott Lucas. Like I'm sure you have some stories about either conversations with him or stories that he's told with you. Like for the audience who does not know Scott Lucas, he is the lead singer of a band called Local H from Chicago. If you've not listened to As Good as Dead and Pack the Cats, you haven't like really lived your life. Talk about that relationship and how that all happened.
And Ham-Fisted. I love their debut album, Ham-Fisted. And they did the
Remixed it.
album for the
Yeah.
anniversary,
Yeah.
Refisted. Yeah, if you would have told 15-year-old Selena that she'd be writing these books and working with Scott Luke, I would have died. I still love Local H, but I was obsessed with Local H when I was in high school and I listened to those albums nonstop. And it was cool because they came out a little later. They were kind of like the second wave after the first 90s bands in Chicago. So I was a little too young when like Liz Phair and and Billy Corgan were like getting their roots. But with Local H, I had this ownership because they were local, and so they were even more important to me. And I loved them. I was my favorite band is Silverchair. I'd love Silverchair so much. And Local H opened for them several times, and they would come through town. So there's just like all these moments I had, and I've interviewed Scott many times over the years, and he's such a fun guy, I mean, the fact that he and Ryan, I mean, they're a two-man band and can pull off the amount of sound and volume and energy they do every single night is incredible. So I asked him to do the forward to this book because who else? But he had a song called Eddie Vedder. And so Scott dealt with the same label pressures to be like the next Pearl Jam that a lot of those bands in the 90s did. And so I really wanted to get his take, and he lovingly agreed to do the forward and wrote a really funny anecdote about Eddie Vedder and the song Eddie Vedder and meeting Eddie Vedder. And we just did a book kickoff together in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and his perspective on the whole scene and that era was really interesting.
Did you record that by chance?
They did. There is going to be audio of it. It wasn't video recorded. We didn't have like a stream capability or anything set up, but there is audio, so I should have that soon.
Yeah, you have to send that. I would
Yeah,
love to listen to that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun.
That's so cool. So I know time is limited here. I got one more questions for you. So
Yeah,
going to concerts and being a music journalist, like how do you balance it when you're trying to review the show
yeah.
versus just going to the show and trying to, just to enjoy it and take it all in? Is that like a struggle for you to try and like turn off that switch?
No, honestly, I think when I am on assignment to review a show, I know I'm there to be professional and do my job and come take my biases out of the situation and really report on what happens and give as much of a objective kind of review as I can. But I will say, I'm so glad that bands do multiple nights now here because I will get a ticket for the next night. So for a band I love, that I can see it again as just a fan. So I've done that with Pearl Jam. I've done that with Nine Inch Nails. I do that. I wanted to with McCartney last week, with those ticket prices were a little steep. So I am able to take off the hat and put on the hat when I need to and separate those two worlds. Thankfully, I haven't been jaded enough to affect my fandom of music yet. I hope that doesn't come. I know it does for some people,
Yeah.
but I'm like, please don't make that happen for me because I do love music. So.
So do you feel like your work-life balance this year has been harder to maintain compared to previous years, or is it always just kind of hard?
This year has been incredible. I have not expected all the things that have happened for my career this year, and I'm so blessed and just in love with all I'm doing right now. I mean, Fox 32 happened this year. I put out 4 books, I believe, this year, which is crazy. I've had these amazing interviews with people. So yes, I've been working a lot, but the old adage, when you love what you do, it's not work. It hasn't been hard to maintain a balance because I've loved every minute. I've just been so surprised and humbled by it all.
So I used to do album reviews and I stopped doing them because for me I hate being a judger or a
Yeah.
judge of people's music. I know you do album reviews. What is your take on that? And do you have any like hang-ups with doing it?
Yeah, so I used to do a lot more album reviews. I haven't done as many recently. I did just review the Mavis Staples album, but how can you pan Mavis Staples? She's a legend. But obviously when I review concerts, I mean, they are reviews, they're critical and they need to be. But I'm with you on that. I find criticizing art really weird. Like someone's going to find value in it because we all relate to things differently based on our personal experiences. So who am I to pan an album that somebody else is going to love? I've never been so okay with that situation. So I like to refer to myself more as a music journalist than a critic because I really don't like the term critic. I think I'm there to like report, and there are times when I have to be critical because the situation warrants it. But I feel like I can always find something positive, and no matter what I'm listening to or go to, there's always something there of value. And no one is like putting out crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've struggled with that as well.
these end of the year lists, they always like, it's always so funny because like I listened or I watched, well, I read Pitchfork's, top
Oh
100
yeah,
songs of the year.
yeah,
And, I love Pitchfork. I think they give overall music like a 6.2, but
yeah, yeah,
um, but like, as much of a pulse that I have to the music scene, like I probably didn't know 75% of the songs. And I'm like, oh
yeah,
my God, either am I doing something wrong or like what's
yeah.
going on here, right? It's just amazing like how much is out there and as you can
Yeah.
never like be done exploring, right?
No, and there's so much. I mean, I'm working on a story now about some of the best Chicago band album releases of this year.
Sure.
And at first, my editor was like, "Can you submit maybe just, like, I don't know, five, six examples, your tops?" And I was like, "Sure." And then I turned in like 25, and I was like, "I don't like. There's so many. I don't." There's always good stuff. And like the
Yeah.
discovery of music is the best part of the journey for me. It's like really, if you're only listening to radio and just what's kind of fed to you, you're missing out on all of the landscape out there to mine through.
Yeah, it's easier for me. I think it's easier to for me to like rank my concerts than to like rank albums or rank songs, and that's kind of what
Sure.
I'll do. Like I've in the past I've ranked albums, I've ranked songs, but yeah, to me it's just like I'm not. Who am I? So,
Yeah.
but at least
Yeah,
from
no, I
a concert
agree.
perspective, at least you're right. Like from a concert perspective, there, might be a special guest that comes out. It might be the size of the venue. Like,
Yeah,
the
sure.
Oasis show, it was 16
Sure.
years in the making, like, so we went to night one, or I'm sorry, night two at New York City. You did Chicago. Talk about that experience.
Yeah. Wait, sorry, for which band?
Oasis.
Oasis,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, I did. So there was only one show here. I would have gone to two if I could have, but Oasis was that was a trip. I mean, I had, I don't try to read reviews before I go to a show because I don't ever want anything filtering in. So I didn't read reviews, but I had seen kind of like the headlines and the overall gist of people calling this a lot of what I thought was like hyperbole. I'm like, okay, let's reel it in. I mean, like, yes, we're all glad they're back. The hyperbole fit. Like I haven't felt this communal exchange with fellow music fans in a very long time, and the band was so dialed in. Liam had moments of humility, which was earth-shatteringly shocking.
Yeah.
There was a magic to that night that I was not expecting, and that is really rare, I have found, to see at shows. And I think it was the anticipation because they've been gone for so long.
Yeah.
But I wish I could have captured the magic of that night in a bottle and could open it back up because it was special.
Yeah. The cool thing too was is that like yeah, it was only what 7 dates in the US. Like it was
Yeah.
very, very, definitive of what they were doing. But yeah, I mean, I've never been to a Taylor Swift concert, but I said to my girlfriend while we were at the show, I was like, I think this is probably the closest thing that I'll get to a Taylor Swift concert because like I bet 80% of the audience had like gear or some sort of
Oh yeah.
merchandise on. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and I have been to a Taylor Swift concert. It wasn't my kind of generation or demographic or something I gleaned to in terms of the communal thing, but I love the beauty of that. And I think you're right. There's something really special about bands who are able to cultivate their fans in a community in a way that's really organic. And Pearl Jam, going back to them, is a great example of that.
Yeah. Well, Selena, I thank you so much for doing this. I would love to continue this and we'll do a second interview if you
Yeah,
want.
I'd love to. Thank you so much
But
for having me.
absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your day. Best of luck with the book. Yeah, so well, yeah, list the four books then that you've released this year. Let the audience know then.
Yeah, so I've released Alanis, 30 years of Jagged Little Pill, Pearl Jam Live, 35 years of touring, and then I had two books on Greta Gerwig, the movie director, and Sabrina Carpenter.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have some coworkers that are really big fans of Sabrina Carpenter.
Oh, nice. Yeah, she's a fun one. She's
Yeah,
just blown up. It's been cool.
yeah, her Saturday Night Live appearances have been quite entertaining.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well,
Thank
Selena, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen,
you.
don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us. That helps the bands and artists that we feature. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear, RAR. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Dog. You've been great. This is the Music Lab Podcast.